Well, I was just saying, you can't help but drive by every mountainside and say, I wonder if there's anything over there. And then you look for any road and there's no real good access. So you'd have to foot it. And how long is it going to take you to go up and down that one? Well, what about the ridge behind
You're camping.
Yeah, and what about the ridge behind that? And what about, if you go over there and you're like, oh, I don't see anything over here, what about way down there? And that's really the difficulty with all this stuff. And that's why most plants that are found, new species, are by new roads that are built.
Right.
I've said this for years. Jetpacks were supposed to be around by now. If there were jetpacks, botanizing would get much, much easier and a lot more new species would be found. So I remember when I was first getting into plants, or actually into seeing plants and habitat, I'd done a few trips into Mexico to see cycads and other things. And I was still working at San Diego Botanic Garden, and we went to go buy some plants at Rancho Soledad Nurseries. And I was going around in the golf cart with Kelly Griffin and, just looking at all this stuff and just jaw-dropping these plants and the stuff he did. And I was fascinated by it. And I said, look, Kelly, if you're ever going to Mexico again, I'd love to join. And I think it was just a few weeks later that he called me up and said, hey, I'm going down to Oaxaca. Would you like to go? And I said, yes, let's go. And I was also, and I remember I didn't really know him and I hadn't been down before. And my mentor for landscaping at the Botanic Garden was this guy, older guy, Bill Teague, real well known throughout San Diego for his gardens. And he said, look, Jeremy, you go on that trip and you will be friends with Kelly the rest of your life. And I have found that to be true. So we drove, just the two of us, to Oaxaca and back, which is a couple thousand miles if you do just, straight. But we were going all through mountains, doing all sorts of stuff, just gunning it. Everywhere we went, running up and down mountains, seeing some of the most gorgeous plants. And it was, I'll never forget that trip, because it was just a completely different experience than the prior trips I'd taken. And we were going for many things, but one was agave elmetiana. And at the time, elmetiana was really only known as a plant that had been taken back by the Spanish and was grown at Kew Gardens, and no one had any provenance of where they came from.
Interesting.
And Coors Cactus, who's out of Germany and he sells seed, was traveling around Oaxaca and looking for tillandsias, and said he saw something that looked similar to it, and he told Kelly about it. And so we went down there, and we didn't know exactly where it was, and we were looking all around in this area, and I remember Kelly kind of ready to give up in a lot of ways, and I said, look, let's just talk to the locals. Let's just see what they say. And we stopped and we said, look, we're looking for maguey, in a maguey, which is agave in Spanish, without teeth, a soft leafed one, because a lot of times maguey is just a broad term.
Right.
And this woman, two women walking down the street said, oh yeah, I know where that is. It grows behind my father's house.
Interesting.
And, we were a little suspicious, but we were like, let's go. She's like, okay, let me hop in the car and give me a ride down, down here, and I'll take you there. So we drive down the road for several miles and stop and get out of the car and walk into this path, into this jungly forest, tillandsias and all things wonderful, growing everywhere. And she goes, my father, he's the local medicine man. He's like the shaman here. We get to his house, and it's just this little, ramshackle place in the mountains. And behind his house, covered on the mountainside, was agave elmetiana.
That's awesome.
And that's where all the plants you see in cultivation now came from. So that was very exciting. And to wrap it up, we drove back 12 days down to Oaxaca and back, seeing more habitats than I can remember. And I absolutely passed out in our hotel in Tucson, could barely get up at the end. And when my energy came back, all I wanted to do was go back and do it over and over and over. And that's what I've been doing. I mean, pre-COVID, I'll be in Mexico once every 1 or 2 months, you know, as often as possible. And especially like we were just talking how easy it is to get down there now at the TJ airport. It's just, you could go down there and fly cheaply and just go down there for a few days and come back, and it's
Yeah, I really want to get down there, man. I haven't been since I lived down there, and that was a long time ago. And we did a cross-country road trip. We drove from Tamaulipas all the way to Mazatlan.
Oh, it's long distance.
Long distance.
Yeah, it's a big country.
It's a big country.
It's a lot of things people don't realize about Mexico is it's got, I mean, the highest peak is what, 18,000 feet, Orizaba? You know, that's higher than anything in the United States, the continental United States, by 4,000 feet. And then you've got tropics, you've got, you know, of course, desert. You've got more oaks and pine species than anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It is the epicenter for those things. So,
interesting. Yeah, and it's not something you would think of.
no, it's
You know,
not.
like you get